That being said, I'm going to jump in and dive in and kind of just give you a visual, a little bit more deep dive on some of the things that Eduardo has mentioned of what's new within InTouch. And um, uh, afterwards, you guys are free to, ask any questions regarding InTouch, as well as maybe InTouch regarding Flex. I know that there's been a ton of new options within InTouch and Flex and those bundles there that I think Alcanza had mentioned a little bit previously as well. One of the things that wasn't mentioned, and I think we have a lot of municipal and water customers as well that use InTouch that are present on this call, is that there is a InTouch bundle for municipalities that's uh, slightly cheaper than the unlimited option that Alcanza was able to show you guys in that kind of that diagram with a different number of VMs. And that it basically provides the same level of functionality as the unlimited. It just reduces the historian tag count to 5,000 tags, as well as the Aviva reports to 5,000 tags. But it does support redundancy for your InTouch nodes or tag servers. It supports redundancy on and unlimited clients. You get historian with the redundancy, and then you also get the Aviva reports instance as well for that automated reporting. So if you have any questions about that, if you're an InTouch user or a potential InTouch user, and if you have any questions, please reach out to your local account manager. They're happy to help you explain to you, what's all included in those types of bundles for you InTouch users out there. All right. So we kind of made the statement that InTouch has had a increased tag count, and I kind of wanted to just quickly show a video of us demonstrating that, kind of us proving it, and then we can go jump into the software. Let me share. And so, yeah, so as Eduardo mentioned, InTouch supports unlimited tags. That physical tag count, right? Obviously, nothing's unlimited, right? There's some sort of physical limitation. Is that down to up to a million tags is that physical limitation. And as Eduardo mentioned, right, for perpetual license users that have the 60K tag licenses, as soon as you upgrade to 2023, you get advantage of the 100K tag license. Another thing that's to mention is if you right these licenses. So the new tag breakdown is 1,000 tags, 2,500 tags, 10,000 tags, 100,000 tags, and then unlimited. So for those users that are on older or smaller tag counts, maybe if you're on a 1,000 tag count or maybe you're on a 3,000 tag count, um, when you upgrade, you also get the increased number of tags. So if you're on 3,000 tags, you actually get 7,000 free tags as you upgrade to support 10,000 tags. In addition, if let's say you're a new customer and you're kind of budgeting, how many tags is my application going to need? And you run on, maybe 3,500 tags. Well, in the past, right, 3,500 would be above that 3,000 tag uh, breakdown or kind of a breakdown in terms of the licensing, and you'd have to go up to the 60K runtime. Well, you can actually take advantage of that newly created 10,000 tag um, uh, license number or license part number, and on a older version back to 2017, take advantage of that 10,000 tag license count. So you can still, even if you're not on the 2023 version, you can still take advantage of the increased tag counts as well. Now, the only caveat to that is on the unlimited license and on the 100K license. And that's because in previous versions, there was that physical hard cap of 60,000 tags. I think it's 63,000 and some odd change of tags is the physical limitation. Now, So the 100 tag license wouldn't support the 100K tags in older versions. That only applies in the version 2023. Hopefully that's clear. If not, let me pull up the chat.
Let
If
me
there's
let me make
questions.
just one comment there. I
Yeah,
think to better explain it, the previous versions of InTouch only know how to deal with 60K, and the structure and the code can only deal with 60K. So if you get a 2023 license today, it will enable 2022 SP1, for example, but it cannot do magic. So if you get a 100K license, it cannot make the software run 100K because that version of the software could only work to 60K. So you are correct. Yes.
yeah, thank you. That you said it much better than much more succinctly than I did. So thank you, Eduardo. Um, but yeah, so definitely, take advantage of that increased licensing bump um, as you move forward with your InTouch application. Um, so here you see here is the video kind of plays through is the actual test of around a little over 300,000 tag system. So here showing you just the licensing details of that it's an unlimited license count, and in the tag name dictionary, we're going to pull up the selected tags and show that there's over 300,000 tags in this application. And in the license, when you apply that unlimited tag license, that will also display an unlimited count. So here, putting it in runtime, showing that InTouch works, and then in the license server, in the usage details, the feature line actually is unlimited tags. And then just showing one quick video on the tag names that Eduardo had mentioned this, and then we'll jump into the software and kind of play around a little bit. But here's the tag name length, right? Increased from 32 to 128 characters. The description increased from 50 to 160 characters, and the item name length increased to 254 characters. Um, so this applies to everything in 2023. So here's just taking a very long string as a tag name, using that as a new tag and showing that within Application Manager. You can still search for the tag name within the tag name dictionary and find that longer tag name just as you would any other tag. And as Eduardo mentioned, and you'll see here in a bit, is in the scripting library, right, that also supports the kind of IntelliSense of those larger tag names as well. So here it is in the tag name dictionary. You can see that very long tag name just to kind of show you the amount of characters that are possible. It seems about 128. We'll take, it seems close enough. And in the application script, being able to start typing in that tag and seeing it kind of smart autofill or auto-populate within the script editor. All right. So we're getting a delay. We'll just delay this. We'll delay this one as well. All right. My environments are trying to shut down on me. We don't want that to happen. All right. So just as context, right, before I showed my enterprise environment, and here is the system platform supervisory installation, which for those who aren't aware, InTouch is a part of that same install file. And if you're just an InTouch customer, you just select the InTouch components that you want from that file. Now, or during the installation process. So going into InTouch, let's pull up Application Manager. And we see the newly vamped up Application Manager. You got, again, common themes applying to all of our products. You saw with System Platform, you're now seeing with InTouch of, common ribbon bars, as well as the design standard overall for not only Application Manager, but for the development environment. In this case, for InTouch, that's Window Maker. So you've got different options, and then hovering over each application that you have loaded into Application Manager, you can quickly jump into Window Maker by selecting this icon, or Window Viewer by selecting the next icon. Providing or doing any kind of admin actions like doing a DB load or a DB dumped or different types of imports or exports to different applications. You're able to change these thumbnails as well as make modifications to different types of settings. So one of the concepts that we've been talking about is this InTouch web client, right? Previously, we showed the OMI web client, which was new with the 2023 release. The InTouch web client is actually a little bit older than that. That's been released into since 2017 update 3, I believe, or around then, one of the 2017 releases. And since then, there's been subsequent feature enhancements with every subsequent release. Now, how to configure the web client? I can just first I select my application and click on the tab of a web client tab. And then I can do some general admin configuration here. So I can pick the application that I want it to apply it for, apply some different refresh rates that I want to have instantiated, as well as different, do I want a nav bar? Do I want to enable those workspaces that Eduardo was talking about, those ad hoc dynamic dashboards that I can create in runtime within either InTouch or even the OMI web client. Allowing anonymous access gives the ability for users to access the web client in a non-credentialed state. And if users do that, and you do allow for that, it's a read-only fashion. So those non-credentialed users aren't having the capability to make changes to set points and other things within the application. In addition, you can customize how this web client kind of looks. In terms of the URL, you can define what that website address is. So the default syntax is the computer name where InTouch is running, as well as a suffix to that URL. Now, by default, that URL is InTouch Web or InTouch, but you can change this as well. And then in addition, this icon is also editable, so you can put maybe a company logo or something that makes it a little bit more relatable or personalized for your application. So you can upload a a JPEG or a bitmap image, for example. So let's hop into that introductory demo, and we're just going to open up Window Maker. So you immediately see a new opening screen, right? It immediately opens into the backstage option in the open selection. So you get, I think, which is much more user-friendly selection of which windows I want to open. I get not only just the name of the window, but a snapshot of what that window looks like. And I can change this back to a list or a detailed list as well, providing the description of the window name as well. But I'll just go ahead and click this button to select all my windows and open up my application. So you can see my 3 windows. I got my navigation on the left, kind of a title bar up top, and then my content display window. Again, the layout is generally the same in terms of where things are located, right? Windows is up near the upper left-hand corner. My scripts and different types of tools are available in the bottom left, although there's kind of tab selections on these things, as well as, I think Eduardo mentioned this, but a more readily accessible location for that super tag creation. So I have a tank super tag with a couple of instances, and we'll dive in this in a minute as well. Over on the right is the industrial graphics. For InTouch customers that are using, right, just as a reminder, industrial graphics is a newly named name for orchestra graphics. And these industrial graphics are available in a standalone InTouch application. So just to kind of provide a little background on that is in the past, to leverage orchestra graphics or industrial graphics, you had to implement what's called a managed InTouch application. And all that means is that you open up Window Maker from the IDE. There's an object within the IDE that you then open up Window Maker, and it's all contained and managed by that galaxy. And that was done primarily to take advantage of the modern graphics package. Now you can move away from that into a much lighter weight installation, and you can easily migrate from a managed application to a standalone app. You can simply take the exported AAPKG file and take that and import that in here to take advantage of a standard standard standalone InTouch application. Sorry, I had a brain fart for a minute. So where, up at the top, right, we have a ribbon bar, right? We can minimize that to give ourselves some more workspace as well. We talked about enabling a dark theme mode, right? That's just a selection up in the ribbon bar. I change this all to a dark theme. And then I got a much better workflow for things, right? Not only do I got newly created icons for different, whether I want to insert graphics, but I have a name associated with that icon, which I think for me is a lot more user-friendly instead of having to know what this little icon is. And you begin to learn as you use the application where things are and what things mean. But this icon in combination with text, I think makes it much more user-friendly. All right, so let's just jump into the runtime. And as we jump into the runtime, it loads into our default window viewer windows. In this case, we just have 3. But as you see, we see that map app that Eduardo had talked about. And this is behaved very, very similarly to what you saw in OMI, right? This map, I believe, is using a source from OpenStreet map provider. But as mentioned, you can use Google Maps or another map provider of your choice. And here we've just overlaid graphics for a couple of different assets for our super tag assets. So here's geolocation for tank 1, and then we've overlaid it with a flow rate for tank 1 graphic and a temperature, and done the same thing for tank 2. We'll show how this is done in just a minute. And I think before I get into different features, I think one of the common questions, and I think has been asked already within this event, is, hey, I'm on 2014 or I'm on 2017. What's new within subsequent versions? Now, I know in system platform, we can deliver that, but I think what Eduardo and his team have done that's really, really cool is within this introductory demo, I can just click this what's new selection and pick my version and see what was implemented into each version update. So I can select 2017 and see a list of what was implemented and added with this release. Now, even this list is not an exhaustive list. That Eduardo has documented in an Excel file that we can provide. But this does give a very, very good kind of snapshot of what's been edited and implemented with each release all the way up to 2023. And you can access this directly from the demo application. And I think it's a really nice way to consume that kind of content. All right, so let's go back to development for a second. And as we mentioned, right, we have this new super tag pane and folder to create super tags, right? So for those who aren't familiar, super tags are a way to create a template-like structure and then create common components of that structure for my InTouch application. So if I open up my tank super tag, I can see the common attributes that I have are the geolocation tag names of latitude and longitude for my tank template. Um, and as I open up a instance, I can see the individual um, uh, item reference definitions that I've defined for that. So here is defining the latitude for the tank one as well as longitude for tank one as well. And if I switch the member list for tank two, um, I can see the respective changes. What was that? And so if I wanted to add an item, I could add maybe, a temperature, and this would be, let me see if I can spell, and I can change the member type to real, and I can have that be applied to my super tag structure. So you'll see much more improvements in subsequent releases to this. Um, and that'll, things like, supporting, array functions and things like that as well. With, let's see, going back to the runtime. How do I get to the web client? Well, there's a few different options, right? In Window Maker, there's kind of a hotkey for the web client. And if I select this will automatically open up our web client. Now, in order for the web client to work, you have to have an instance of Window Viewer running. So it feeds off of Window Viewer, and that's how you get access to your web client. So you see the same content that you saw in the thick client of that application. You see the map app. I can navigate to what's new, and this is all within that web client feature. Within here, right, I can poke around in my demo, see the situational awareness, examples of different graphical standard concepts of maybe moving away from that color graphic that is very, very common in the space, market space, but moving away to more of a grayscale oriented graphic, really providing color only when it really needs to, rather than having color, in a whole bunch of places and really kind of convoluting the actual display. And not only can you have a default kind of collection of windows, but the other option that I can do is I can just navigate into different into my graphics toolbox and pick individual windows or graphics and select them one by one here as well. So I can go into my window list and kind of pick windows as I want. So if I select this, it'll pick that window, or if I um, select the title bar. I can put this in full screen and still move around my map. And yeah, the other thing I think that is nice to mention is that the web client is the feature set or the software packet, the software solution that actually also gets utilized by the native mobile app as well. So there is a mobile app for InTouch to take advantage of mobile access, and that if you create create windows that are constructed to be used in the web client form, you can then access them from that mobile app from a browser as well. And what was created in, I think, 2020 R2, which was reverse proxy support for the web client. So that is really one of the tools and mechanisms to allow for remote access via the web client to that application. Now, for those familiar, right, the other option in the past has been InTouch Access Anywhere, which relies on an RDS server to deliver a session via HTML5. So that was another way to remotely access or locally access your InTouch application via an HTML5 browser. The nice thing about Web Client is that it's much, much more lightweight than InTouch Access Anywhere because it doesn't have a reliance on remote desktop services. Um, in addition, and I think this was touched on previously, but I kind of want to reiterate it, is that the web clients commercially was only available in a, hey, every runtime gave you one concurrent user for that web client. And if you wanted more, the only other option was unlimited. And oftentimes, I don't want to pay for unlimited. I just want, a couple. So what we've done is implemented different commercial license packs to support, maybe a pack of 5 or a pack of 10, 25. And so you can kind of incrementally build up to the unlimited usage and don't have to kind of pay unlimited and I'm only consuming 2. Now, on that subject, I would recommend applying kind of a buffer for how many concurrent web clients. If you're like, yep, you've sold me on web client, I want to use it, right? And how many licenses do I need? So I would really count the estimated number of concurrent users and then apply a little bit of a buffer. And why is that? Well, I think the main reason for that is oftentimes the most way people will use this browser technology is, hey, when they're done using it, they won't go in and log off or sign off of the client directly. Oftentimes, and this is just out of habit of using the internet, right, we'll just close the browser. Now, while eventually the license will get released if you do this, it takes a few minutes for that to happen. So it's always good to have kind of a little bit of a buffer of client licenses to support kind of that interaction or that user interaction that often will be the case when using a browser-based visualization application. Yeah, so that's just kind of the one of the things that to consider. But yeah, definitely much more palatable in terms of options of consuming that. And as mentioned, the In Flex, the unlimited bundles that Alcanza had mentioned, like InTouch Unlimited, supports for unlimited clients via an RDS architecture, so using remote desktop services, as well as unlimited web clients. So we support both unlimited options. And that's one of the nice things of, hey, I can mix and match my usage and I don't have to worry about how many, and I just consume as much as I need to and as much as my physical server can support. That's right, obviously the physical limitation. And then moving forward, right, I can expand that usage to, hey, I'm always running into issues of, hey, my server's reaching a physical limit of, hey, I've got 50 RDS clients on one and 45 on the other. I kind of want to, avoid or move away from having to check out a new license or purchase a new license. And that's really where those operations control packages come into play, right? I can just count the number of named users that are touching my system and download and install as much software as well. And with that Edge package, you get unlimited InTouch in that bundle, as well as the common components as well, and any add-on that you might want. All right. Any questions so far? Feel free to interject. All right. So within that web map app, right, it is configured very, very similarly to is configured very, very similarly to the OMI web app. It's using very, very similar web widget technology. So let me just close out of this in a second, right? If I expand the widgets, right, I see this map app widget, right, the QO scanner, the web browser. And if I go back into my system platform instance, I see very similar web widgets that are available in both products, right? As you'll see is right, Aviva is trying to kind of develop a technology and be able to apply that into multiple software suites, really kind of optimizing that rollout of features and nobody gets left out. So that's kind of the nice thing that you'll see here. And as mentioned, um, uh, one of the things that you can do is you can actually centrally manage your industrial graphics in the cloud. Now, I don't have a connected system, but how that would work is I would sign in and connect to my cloud account. So you would first need to have an account with our cloud platform, which is called Aviva Connect. And then you would also need access to our cloud development offering, which I think Brian Leonard is going to talk about, which is called Integration Studio. And then from there, I could send different graphics to the cloud, manage in different iterations of those graphics, and consume them on different platforms. So let's say I'm a customer and I have a little bit of standalone InTouch, and maybe I also have some system platform. Well, I can take that same graphic and apply it to both systems, and I can centrally manage that. So making that kind of management workflow much more easier and better, when managing different graphic libraries. So I can kind of consolidate into a single one that's readily accessible from the cloud. Within the widget, right, if I double click this, moving back to InTouch and the map app widget, I can edit the custom properties and some of them that you see here of the current asset or not the current latitude, longitude settings, as well as initial zoom settings, as well as the physical barriers of the map as well. So the max of how I want to visualize, east, north, south, and west, and you can see those things over here. Um, And then let's see if I go to my demo. So how do I um, create a InTouch web application? Um, it's very, very straightforward. So you saw in the application manager where I enable that from the application itself, but how do I dictate, my home screen or which windows and graphics do I want to be available? Um, well, in this case, I've actually made all my graphics available um, by setting um, a root folder as the web client root folder. So all I have to do, if I were gonna redo this, is I would create a new tool set and call this, web client. And I would drag and drop graphics and windows into this folder uh, that I have here. And then lastly, I just set this web client as the root folder, and this would be available in the navigation of my web client application. Now, which screens get populated as my default? So by default, it takes advantage of your window viewer settings. So if I go into File and Configure and go into my window viewer settings, I see the startup options of, hey, what are my home windows? And so I've actually selected these home windows uh, as my startup, right? The web client will take advantage of this as well as your standard InTouch application. And in addition, expose all the other different windows and graphics that I've also associated in that, and I'm just going to discard these changes. And in this, in whatever folder that I designate as my root. Now, in this case, in this example, I've got the root as my root folder for my web client. And if I go into it and just open it up again, I'd see first that it opens up my 3 home windows for my InTouch application. And in the navigation menu, you see the same graphics tool sets that you saw in the in-window maker in that development environment. So I can expand and see different symbols that are here, as well as the different windows that you saw previously. So that's kind of in general how it's structured and works within InTouch. So great question, Robert. No, so the legacy graphic objects do not work in web client. That is one of the prerequisites to it. You do need to use the industrial graphics. And if you aren't using those industrial graphics, there is a native way to convert existing windows and graphics to industrial graphics. So if I right click or select any selection of graphics, I can then, since these are already industrial graphics, I can't select it, but I could select this button to convert them to industrial graphics. It'll go through some steps of just identifying, hey, what it's going to convert over, or at least attempt to. And in the event that anything fails, provide a report of, hey, these were the successful graphics that were converted over to industrial graphics, and these are the ones that failed. And there can be a whole host of reasons why that might fail, but I would say by and large, most of what you've got created, especially if there's nothing super custom, you can convert those over by the click of this button. And Sarah provides a good kind of caveat to that, right? So some of the older script functions will prevent that from failing over. So thank you, Sarah. That's really good insight. Um, but yeah, so a really nice way to kind of get over onto the modern technology, take advantage of the new features, and uh, take advantage of that. Um, on a note for the unlimited license, that today is only available through a flex commercial model. So on perpetual, the max I can go is 100,000 tags. Um, and for those still remaining on perpetual commercial models, you would immediately receive that 100K increase or bump once you upgrade to the 2023 version of that license. As Maury mentioned, if you are an existing customer, first customer, or maybe you are a perpetual license user and you've been off support for a while. You don't need support, but you're like, hey, Aviva's kind of convincing me that, this flex model is really cool and I kind of want to see what this looks like. Take advantage of some of these features. There are pathways for both types of customers to get onto flex. And to kind of summarize, basically for existing first customers or existing customers that are maintaining support, we take the license install value and convert it into a number of credits. And then the existing licenses actually retain a credit value, and you can trade in those licenses for some of those unique flex licenses that Alcanza showed earlier in our flex presentation. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, you know, as you may know or may not know, in the perpetual model, right, there isn't, an unlimited InTouch client license, for example, or there isn't an unlimited historian license, for example. And I could recoup some of that perpetual investment that I've previously made in my licenses and recoup that value and apply it for some of those unique unlimited InTouch bundles or licenses that are only available in Flex. So it's a nice way to kind of an incentivization structure to preserve the investment that you've already made, migrate over, and if you, in the event that it makes sense to take advantage of these unlimited options, there's a mechanism to do so, and you don't need to repurchase everything from scratch, right? You can take advantage of what was already purchased. So definitely, if you're interested, reach out to your account manager to discuss, more specifically to your account. But that's we've seen more and more customers taking advantage of that for a wide number of reasons. I know I've got a few minutes left. I'll open the door for any questions or comments.
Do you happen to know the character limit on an object, an attribute, off the top of your head, Tim? I thought it was
No,
128.
It's more. I think it's more than
Or
that.
512.
It's 300. The attribute limit is 320 characters.
Oh, it's 320. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's an oddball number.
Well, it's kind of based on, but it was based on 1032 characters with in the containment model, but whatever. The attribute is 320.
Yeah, because the question earlier was about orchestra, and just to refresh anybody who hasn't been around the Wonderware, Inventus, Aviva, CB family in a long time, orchestra was a technology that was released by whoever at the time, Inventus, Wonderware, CB, whatever at the time. And it applied to multiple things. And so there was definitely a lot of interchangeable use of the term orchestra. Most people used it orchestra graphics, but it also applied to system platform orchestra objects. So an orchestra graphic tied to an InTouch tag still had a 32 tag character limit, which is now obviously increased here. If, as Mike mentioned, if orchestra graphics were connected to an object attribute, the character limit was 320, but they're separate character limits, if that helps answer whoever asked the prior question. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a difference between a tag name limit on the object and an attribute name limit.
Right.
So
what's the tag name limit on it? What's the
so
object
the tag name limit is 32 characters because you can have 10 contained objects, and so the hierarchical name limit is 320 characters.
Right.
So you have 10 32s plus 9 dot or whatever.
Oh, right. That makes sense. But then the attribute limit?
The same, 320.
320. Hopefully that made sense to the audience. That one's a little confusing.
I think Robert also asked about dot fields, and yes, it'll retain its individual dot field related to that tag. So super tags will retain that as well. I'm sorry I missed that.
Gotcha. Any other InTouch questions? Again, this is, oh, turn my camera back on. This is more for InTouch users, any legacy InTouch users, if you want to call that. I highly recommend you look at the Flex licensing models. There's some incredibly attractive offerings for any existing InTouch customers or anybody looking at putting in new InTouch. I mean, these bundles are incredibly attractive with unlimited user, unlimited user amounts and things like that, unlimited tag amounts and so on. So please take a look, whatever you think you might know about licensing pricing from years gone by. I think we know that Flex really upends that kind of those notions, and we've had a lot of success in the marketplace because of it. So please take a look.